after a controversial moment on the court. Footage circulated showing Brittney Griner appearing to say something contentious after a foul involving CaitlinClark. Though unclear, viewers have speculated she might have uttered derogatory or racially charged remarks. The uncertainty about her exact words has fueled widespread debate. Yet what stands out most isn't the ambiguity of the footage. It's Griner's complete refusal to address the controversy. Commentators like Megyn Kelly have emphasized this silence, noting that in high-stakes situations involving potential allegations of racism, the expected response would be immediate clarification. Instead, Griner has remained silent, which many interpret as more telling than any visual evidence. Kelly's perspective was that if Griner had truly said something innocuous, such as calling the play whack, she would have been quick to release a statement or issue a denial. In today's age of social media, celebrities and athletes can instantly address accusations, and most do when misrepresented. That Griner has opted for no comment suggests she either has no credible alternative explanation or fears being contradicted by potential audio or crowd recordings. With modern arenas filled with cameras and smartphones, there's always the possibility that someone captured clearer audio, and this risk might be guiding her strategy to stay silent. Kelly also pointed out that Griner has had several chances to clarify the situation, whether through press conferences, interviews, or social posts, but has chosen not to. This decision stands in stark contrast to how public figures normally handle such incidents. When false accusations arise, especially about something as serious as racism, the immediate instinct is typically to set the record straight. That's not what's happened here, and it has only deepened suspicion. The broader impact of this episode on the WNBA is significant. The league has seen a surge in popularity thanks to CaitlinClark's breakout presence, which has brought new fans, increased media coverage, and a spike in revenue. Any incident that threatens this momentum, especially involving race-related controversy, becomes a serious concern for the league. When a veteran player is seen potentially making derogatory remarks about the league's rising star, it undercuts the narrative of unity and progress the WNBA has been working hard to build. The timing is particularly unfortunate, as the league is attempting to reach new audiences and gain long-term commercial viability. The idea that certain players may harbor resentment toward Clark, whether due to her rapid rise, race, or both, presents a troubling dynamic. Kelly also drew attention to the larger cultural themes at play, noting how this situation forces a reconsideration of typical narratives about race, bias, and public accountability. That a black athlete might be accused of making racially inappropriate remarks toward a white athlete disrupts conventional discourse and compels a broader, more nuanced conversation. This isn't just about a single game or a foul. It's about how institutions respond when racial dynamics are reversed from the more expected scripts. Another dimension that Kelly explored is Griner's history with American institutions and her prior expressions of dissatisfaction with the country, such as kneeling during the national anthem and criticizing the justice system. This context adds weight to the current controversy because it suggests a pattern of tension with national symbols and cultural norms. It's especially stark considering that the U.S. government intervened diplomatically to secure her release from a Russian prison, even trading a notorious arms dealer for her freedom. That massive effort, involving considerable political and moral cost, underscores the expectations placed on Griner to represent the country positively upon her return. If, after all that, she's involved in a controversy over racial comments toward a fellow American athlete, it casts a shadow over the entire rescue effort and raises uncomfortable questions about gratitude and representation. The arms dealer involved in the exchange, convicted of conspiring to harm Americans, represents a serious sacrifice by U.S. authorities, making Griner's subsequent conduct subject to heightened scrutiny. The perception that she may still harbor resentment or act divisively, even after being saved from international incarceration, damages both her image and that of those who advocated for her return. From a media strategy standpoint, Kelly's analysis has been effective not because of aggressive accusations, but because of her focus on the strategic silence from Griner. She understands how reputation management works and how behavioral cues often matter more than direct evidence. Rather than speculate heavily on what was or wasn't said, Kelly simply highlighted that the absence of a denial, explanation, or response is in itself profoundly damaging. This kind of framing puts pressure on public figures without needing definitive proof and allows the public to draw conclusions based on demeanor and decision-making rather than grainy footage. In terms of public relations, this has been handled poorly. If Griner is innocent or if her words were misinterpreted, the silence has done far more harm than any immediate response could have. The longer this goes unaddressed, the more it fuels speculation, which becomes its own kind of narrative. Griner's refusal to speak only deepens the controversy, suggesting that she may be unable or unwilling to give a straightforward explanation that the public would accept. Kelly's legal background also informs her understanding of how silence is often perceived in public discourse, not necessarily as strategic restraint, but as tacit acknowledgement. In courtroom settings and public scandals alike, silence is rarely helpful unless followed by a strong, clarifying statement later on. In Griner's case, there has been none. This situation also affects team dynamics within the WNBA. If there's perceived racial tension between players, especially involving the star whose revitalizing interest in the sport, it affects locker room chemistry, fan engagement, and overall league harmony. Sponsors and new fans brought in by Clark's influence may reconsider their support if the league is seen as divisive or racially charged. Even though the controversy centers on one moment, it could shape narratives for an entire season or longer. Kelly also noted that the media's general reluctance to cover the controversy aggressively is part of the problem. Many mainstream outlets have hesitated to explore the story deeply, likely fearing backlash or being seen as stoking racial tension. This vacuum has allowed alternative voices, like Kelly's, to dominate the conversation. Her approach, asking obvious questions and examining silence rather than making inflammatory claims, has positioned her as one of the few commentators willing to address uncomfortable truths. Fans and critics alike notice when the media seems to avoid stories that challenge popular narratives, and that avoidance often leads to a credibility gap. Kelly's observations cut through that gap and have shaped public perception in a way that many larger outlets have not. For casual fans, especially those newly introduced to the league, this situation presents a jarring contrast to the positive and inspiring stories they were expecting. Most are drawn to sports for entertainment, competition, and community, not conflict. The introduction of racial tension, especially among high-profile players, risks alienating this new audience before it fully commits. The economic consequences could be serious. Corporate partners, television networks, and advertisers are wary of controversy, particularly ones rooted in race. The league's ability to attract long-term investment depends on its ability to maintain a positive image, and controversies like this work against that goal. Kelly's restraint in not declaring Griner guilty, but instead focusing on the implications of silence, is key. It shifts the discussion from one about what might have been said to one about how professionals respond under pressure. In that framing, Griner's silence becomes a statement, and one that is difficult to defend. When public figures are accused of racism, rightly or wrongly, the norm is to respond, clarify, and correct the record. That hasn't happened here, and so far, the silence is more powerful than any comment she could have made. Kelly's closing takeaway is hard to ignore. People who are falsely accused usually don't stay silent. That principle, applied to this context, has shaped public perception more effectively than any video footage ever could.